Have you been struggling with nagging injuries like knee pain or plantar fasciitis and you thought you would never run pain free again? Do you feel so lethargic and tired because you're not getting in the proper amount of nutrition to fuel all the exercise and running that you're doing? Those are the things that Rachel was struggling with prior to getting guidance with myself as her running physical therapist and coach, and Brooke, our running registered dietitian at Spark Healthy Runner. Once Rachel got clarity on where she needed to focus her efforts with her training, she not only felt better as an athlete, but just completed her first road marathon and exceeded all her expectations. We're just so proud of her. And Rachel is not only a trail runner, a serious rock climber, and now marathoner, but she is a pretty awesome person who not only is driven, but takes action on getting guidance, which we don't see a whole lot in our younger 20 something year old runners. And I respect that in Rachel, that she has the humility to know when is the right time to ask for help. So thank you for coming into mine and Brooke's world and agreeing to share your story here with us today, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks, Duane. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for you to share your story. And if you're listening to this right now or watching this and you're a goal oriented person and don't want to worry and question whether you'll be able to get your daily runs in for stress relief, then you're going to want to listen to Rachel's transformation, as I'm sure it will resonate with what she has to say today. And if you don't mind, Rachel, can you tell us how old you are, what you do for a living, and how you got interested in running?
Yeah, so I actually did turn 30. So,
Oh,
yep, just
congratulations. So
getting, yeah.
yeah, a new decade here.
Oh, yeah. New decade and definitely 30s. Everyone jokes around about, oh, wait till you turn 30. All the things you got away with in your 20s won't necessarily work for you anymore. And that definitely became the case for me. um, so, yeah, 30 now. I work as a dental hygienist. So I work in a general practice right now, working 4 days a week, which are long days. So definitely got into running as something that was a little bit easier to do, like before work, after work. I used to more predominantly just rock climb, which is a little bit harder to get into when you're pressed on time. Um, really got into running. Most of my family members run. Um, my grandfather actually was a huge marathoner. He's done all the big marathons. And I don't know, kind of just sparked my interest to give running a try. And then when I first started running, I was mostly into trail running, especially with all the rock climbing. I was just mostly used to being in the woods. And for whatever reason, after doing a few trail runs, I decided to just start giving road running a try, and that's kind of where where I got to in the last year or so. And
Yeah. And I think
yeah.
that's when you started listening to the podcast, if I remember correctly.
Yes. So last year I had just started getting into doing like a little bit longer races, and while I was training for them, I just so happened to look up like a running podcast. I think the first one that I looked up, for I actually think I was looking for fuel, like, oh, like what's a good like fueling strategy? And actually the first podcast that popped up that I looked for was the Spark Healthy Running podcast. And it was actually funny. I listened to quite a few of the podcasts. I thought it was awesome. And then I had brought up to a friend, like, wow, I found this awesome podcast. My friend laughed at me and she said, you know that Duane works like 30 minutes from where you live, right? I had absolutely no idea that you were
Kelsey, shout
also,
out.
yeah. My friend Kelsey was like, he's pretty close by. So when I started actually running into some like more specific questions, finding out how close I was to you, I was like, oh, it seems like a no-brainer. I should probably reach out.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you did. And yeah, I think it's not so much common that a lot of people do rock climbing, right? Like you're like a serious rock climber. Like, can you just explain to everyone like how many hours do you train for rock climbing? Like maybe give
Yes.
me like your longest session during the week, and then how many hours a week do you train for rock climbing?
Yeah, so rock climbing, it's very different than running or like a lot of other sports because you really do have to pull yourself out of the mindset of constantly trying to send a climb or like do like a specific climb and kind of get yourself more in the mindset of like every time I go, I'm trying to improve because it's really easy when you're climbing to just constantly be trying to like get the next climb, get the next climb. So training kind of looks a little different. Climbing training also looks different in the sense that it's a very different type of movement. There's so many different things you need to train. So obviously, you need to work on your strength to an extent, but you also have to work on your flexibility and you have to work on your finger strength and you have to work on your dynamic movement and you have to work on your footwork and you have to not overdo it because it's really easy to hurt your fingers. So there's a lot that goes into it. I'm pretty fortunate that a lot of the climbing stuff that I got into came from my dad. So my dad actually is a rock climber. He got me into it when I was a kid. So I grew up in the woods with my dad, putting me on
That's
random
so cool.
climbs in the woods. And so a lot of the gear and the safety stuff that goes along with climbing, because with the type of climbing that I typically do, it's called traditional or trad climbing. You put gear in the rock and you have to set up all your own anchors and you set up all your own safety. So I kind of grew up doing that. So I was pretty lucky in that sense. So as far as, the time commitment for that, it's been a lot less, but the time commitment for training was usually like training was 3 times a week for like 2 to 3 hours. And then usually was like just climbing like 1 to 2 days. And sometimes that was like 12 hours. If you're doing a day outside, I mean, you're out there from sun up to sundown. So it was a lot of time. And I still
Yeah.
do
So
climb, but it's nice to do a little bit of both.
yeah, so you were doing a lot of exercise and activity when
Yeah.
we first met, and that was, something that we definitely needed to balance, right? In how much training that you were doing, but um, I think it is great that you decided to kind of take on a newer challenge and kind of got into trail running, and then decided like, hey, I want to actually like do a road marathon one day, and start running actually on the roads. And it is just so great to kind of challenge yourself and, in different ways. And someone listening to this right now, most likely is not a rock climber. But if you are, like, kudos to you. Like, you got super strong, like, grip strength and like shoulder stability and scapular strength, which I definitely appreciated. It brought me back into my days when I used to work with a lot of gymnasts who had really, really strong upper body strength. But thank you for sharing kind of some of your background there. And I think even though you just turned 30, you might still be the officially youngest person I've ever had on the podcast, and sharing your story. um, so if you're listening to this right now and you're currently battling an injury or you're trouble having, getting enough energy in the exercise that you want to do, and even if you're young and you're 30 or in your 20s, like Rachel, it is my hope that her sharing her story today will really provide you some inspiration and think about what's possible to overcome some of these sticking points and not only run pain free but feel good and crush some amazing goals that you have for yourself, like Rachel did running her first road marathon. And I know it can be frustrating and you might even feel like defeated. If you were like Rachel, then you would probably have tried like decreasing your mileage, foam rolling, doing some strength plans, doing all the things you could do on your own, but you still feel like something is missing or keeping you from reaching your goals. And these frustrations, sticking points can be overcome. And Rachel is just one of our Spark winners from our Healthy Runner coaching program who has accomplished some amazing things with her running, her health, her lifestyle. And these tips can help you if you're struggling with a similar issue. So, Rachel, if we can kind of dive into the situation that you were really facing, that really prompted you to actually reach out to me initially, and what were some of the main problem areas that you really decided to sign up for the program?
Yeah, so A lot of it started right around the time I had just finished my first ultra race. So I did a 32-mile race for the first time after having only been running for, I don't know, maybe 2 years, if that. So I really didn't have any background on recovery whatsoever. And right after I did this race, I, within a few days went right back into running and then just decided, oh, like I'm gonna do the Manchester Road Race, which just so happened to be 5 days after the ultra
Yeah.
race. Not a great idea, I know now. And then I just kept going for runs. I was like, oh, maybe I'll try to get a little bit faster. So I started like doing speed workouts that some of my friends who are also runners were doing. I remember I ran, for anyone who knows Castle Craig, anyone in Connecticut knows there's a park with a really steep hill. It's like this 3-mile hill. Um, decided to run up and down it a bunch of times as like a training race and like sprint down it for like absolutely no reason. Just thought like, oh, this is going to be great training. And then my knee started to bother me, and I did what I think a lot of people do, and I took some Advil and I taped my knees, and I said, oh, it'll be fine. And I just kind of continued to do that. And then it started to get really bad. So then I started taking some time off from running. So I said, I'll take a week off. And then when I would start running again, the pain would immediately start. And then the pain would get worse. So then I would take some more time off. And then the pain would come back and it would get worse. And it was like this constant cycle where every single time I tried to run again, the pain just kept getting worse. And it got to the point where even if I was trying to run like really slowly, really flat, like no matter what I did, my knee would start to hurt. So I kind of took a step back and I said, I just got into running. I was really enjoying it. Clearly, I don't know what to do in order to improve this on my own. So I've been listening to this podcast, and turns out that Duane that I've been listening to is right down the street for me. So I said, it seems like a no-brainer to reach out. So that was about the time that I said, all right, enough's enough.
Yeah, and I remember that you had told me that you tried doing some road running and like the pain was worse than when you were
Mm-hmm.
on the trails. And yeah, I know initially too, based upon, some of your kind of digging into like, hey, what's causing your knee pain? You had a sense that it was probably like the patellar tendon. And then when we kind of went through, the full exam and really taking a look at what was going on, that it was actually the IT band that was kind of the culprit on the outside of your knee there. And this is definitely a common condition when someone does too much too soon, especially downhill running. And, so that definitely was a trigger there. And, I do get a lot of younger runners like yourself in their upper 20s, lower 30s that, reach out to me and say, okay, what's causing my pain? What can I do? And usually people, honestly, I'm going to be quite frank with you. Usually people your age want to just like follow some YouTube videos, try it on their own. And I'm just kind of curious because clearly like you wanted to take a different path. And I'm curious to hear, what made you like pull the trigger on getting some specific guidance with this?
So for me, it was that every time you look up like runner pain or like, my knees bother me while running, everything that comes up obviously says like, oh, you have runner's knee, you have runner's knee. But everything that runner's knee, like quote unquote, like described, I was like, not my knee. Like that's, not the same spot that my knee's bothering me. That's not the same pain. I've been doing like the workouts that it says runner's knee would benefit from, and like none of them were working. And actually, I remember now my foot started to bother me, and I was like, oh no, like now am I getting plantar fasciitis too? Like I was like, so I was like, clearly, like it's not runner's knee. Clearly, what I'm doing is absolutely not doing anything for it. And I could tell just based on when my knee was bothering me and the activities that were bothering me. I was like, I definitely don't know exactly what's wrong, and I'd rather go to someone who can tell me one, like exactly what happened to my knee, like what's causing it and how to actually rehab it so it doesn't just keep getting hurt again.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you did, honestly. Were there any hesitations about, starting to work together?
No. No.
Okay. All right. Um, and once we kind of, really dove into like what were the specific problem areas that were causing this pain, I remember we picked up on, definitely some running form errors, and a common one that I do see a lot in younger runners just starting out, like yourself, is kind of that overstriding. And I remember we kind of identified that early on, as well as some limited ankle mobility or flexibility in the IT band and in your quads, and kind of put you on a plan where to really, hone in on those areas. And, as we really started working together, what were some of the things that you felt were like helpful as we started working together?
So definitely in the beginning, I loved something that really stood out to me was our initial intake. I mean, I think we were together for like 2 hours. I mean, it was very thorough. Like there were very few questions I had at the end of that because I felt like, okay, I really know like these are the problems and this is how we're going to fix it. And I remember I was definitely a little overwhelmed at first when I saw the plan, like, oh, I'm going to be doing all of these things, but it all came together really easily because it was all laid out really nicely for me as to like how I should be doing all the exercises. I do remember at first thinking like, oh, this looks so boring. Because, you go from, I really want to be doing all these like fast paced runs and I want to just get in there like I was doing. But seeing how, getting started, how good the exercises felt, like you immediately can feel the difference in your legs. Like you can feel like, oh, it almost feels like someone's like taking my knee and like holding it together. Like it feels really comfortable, like after doing those types of runs. And then doing the exercises and the runs together and doing like the run walk intervals, just seeing how much better my body was feeling and how much more energy I was having, like immediately like started feeling really good.
Yeah, and I do remember that because it did require a lot of education, and really, because I could tell you were a little skeptical in the beginning and was like I felt like you were saying to me like, dude, do you realize the like type of athlete I am? Like you're gonna have me just like do a little walking and running, like how is this gonna help me? And I was like, trust me, like we need to kind of almost take a step back, right? Because you basically taught your body how to run a certain way, and we were kind of correcting some of those things. And actually now just randomly I thought about the videos that you shot, and there's some like funny videos that you sent.
Yeah, and you were like, don't run like that. Don't do that. You were like, do not do that. But we did
And
solve it.
yeah, and because the whole goal was like we were trying to like restore your fundamental running movement patterns and like teach your body how to run the right way, and now build up your strength in your body as you start to build up like the amount of running you were doing, the speed, all of that stuff. And I remember, yeah, definitely having the conversation about speed and like how fast you were running, and to like keep things easy to allow your body and your tissues to adapt to the demands of running. And yeah, I'm just so glad that you bought in, right? And you trusted the process and trusted,
Yeah.
what I was kind of educating you on. And yeah, I'm just so glad that after really those 16 weeks of us working together, and even I feel like it was probably around 8 to 10 week mark, you were essentially like pain free for the most
Yeah.
part. And we were really starting to progress your running. Then you went on some like amazing vacations, like rock
Hmm.
climbing and running in the woods, and yeah, you
Yeah.
were like loving it, and having a good old time, and like not having to worry about your knee pain, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
So
that was one
yeah.
of the crazy things. I remember one of my short-term goals was my husband and I were going to Hawaii, and I really wanted to be able to do like hiking and running and climbing and not feel pain. And I was nervous because it was only like a few months into working with you, and like I was completely pain-free. Like, and it was, to me, it was like magic because I couldn't believe how many times I tried and tried and tried and tried to get out of pain, and it just would not go away. And then we worked together for like, what, a month and a half, and it was gone. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That was awesome. I remember that's right. I remember some of the messages you were sending me too, while you were on vacation. And yeah, I'm just so happy that you got to experience that because yeah, Hawaii is just like magical, right?
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
amazing place, and especially like what you were doing there. Yeah, when I went way back when for my honeymoon, like I'm no like hiker and rock climber. I did like Diamond Head on like Oahu, which is like everyone does that, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't like anything extreme by any means. So I could just imagine some of the trails that you were on, but kind of shifting gears a little bit to some of the fueling struggles that you were facing that really prompted you. So once we were kind of got you pain free and you were back to running and you're out in the woods and you're doing some road running, we started having you work with Brooke on our team,
Hmm.
our registered dietitian. And what were some of the fueling struggles that you were really facing, that prompted you to start working with Brooke?
Yeah. So I kind of realized, again, I'd only been running for a very short period of time. And so we'd finally gotten me out of pain. I was finally able to like increase my miles again. But what I had never really thought about before was like how I should be fueling during any of my runs. And I think some of my problems that I was ending up having was I had a lot of friends that I ran with who have been runners for forever, like runners in high school, runners all through college. And I mean, all of my friends are runners who do 100 Ks and 50 Ks all the time. And when I was running with them, like something that was maybe a longer run for me wasn't necessarily as long a run for them. So their fueling strategies were always so much different than mine. And I started thinking like, oh, maybe like I don't need to bring a water bottle every time, or oh, I don't need to bring a snack. They don't bring a snack. And I constantly started to notice as time went on, as I was running more, I was like, I am always tired. No matter what I do, I finish a run, I can't get anything done for the rest of the day because I'm just exhausted. Or I would get halfway through my run and I would just not even want to be there anymore because I was so tired. Um, and I also found I was like, I have no idea what I should be eating because all of a sudden I realized I was like, I feel like I'm burning through calories really quickly. Um, but underfueling, it just happens so quickly. You don't really think about it until all of a sudden you're so hungry. And every time I was like, all right, no, I think I'm eating enough now. All of a sudden I would find myself super hungry in a few hours. And especially on my runs, like the days that I would go for runs, I felt like I was hungry the whole day and I was always in a fog. So I I was like, you know what? Like, I think I'm good with Duane, but maybe I'll reach out to Brooke and see what things are looking like on the other side. So that's kind of how I started working with Brooke there.
Yeah, and it is a common problem and struggle point that many runners have. And I usually find this, for runners kind of starting out, right? Like in their first 5 years of running, because it does place different demands on the body. And like you said, sometimes the side effects you don't even realize and like put two and two together that it could be nutrition. You just think, oh, I maybe have a headache or like I just feel tired after a run because I'm not conditioned enough or my body's just not used to it yet. And it could be something simple as, getting in the proper fueling for the activity you're doing. And like with you, as we mentioned earlier, like you were doing a lot of activity throughout your week as it was, like with training for climbing, with doing climbing, with running, right? Like you were doing a lot of forms of exercise, and that's definitely requiring a lot of energy and you're burning a lot of energy. So you need to supplement that with the proper nutrition and fuel. And, what was most helpful with the guidance that you got from working with Brooke?
So Brooke was also just unbelievably helpful. She was really able to put together not only a plan for like this is what you should be doing during your runs, but she basically like put a plan together for like all of my meals. So working with Brooke, we kind of went over like what my typical week was as far as activity goes, and then we broke down like exactly when I could be eating based on like what my work schedule was and what my workout schedule was going to be as well, and exactly how I should be eating. So something as simple as I was like, oh, I have a really hard time like finding a break during my work day to actually drink water and have a snack. She was like, okay, this is the snack you're going to have, and water through a straw. She was like, you have to drink your water through a straw, which is like, what big a difference can that make? For me, all the difference. I drink water all the time now because of Brooke, just from that one simple thing. But she kind of
Interesting.
just found,
Why is that?
she said it just eliminates a step. She was like, it just
Okay.
one extra step you don't have to do because you just hold the water bottle really quickly. For whatever
Yeah.
reason,
Okay.
worked really well for me.
Nice. Nice little
Fun
tip.
fact, I actually told all my coworkers about this tip and a lot of them use it now. So
Nice.
converted a lot of people to drinking water through a straw.
I love that.
Thanks to
See,
Brooke.
you're like influencing others. I love it.
And other things like she kind of not only helped me with like what macronutrients I should be eating, but even just like coming up with different meals and ways to not get like what she called like palate fatigue. Like this is how you can like eat different things and what different things you could eat, which was unbelievably healthy or helpful for me because I just constantly was feeling like I have absolutely no idea what I should be eating or when I should be eating. So it was even just when you get out of work, this is the kind of snack you should have. Like after your workout, this is the kind of snack you should have. If it gets too late at night, but you still need to eat, this is the kind of snack you should have. And the other thing that she really helped me with is pretty much realizing like anytime I think to myself, like, do I really need to eat something? The answer is yes. She constantly was saying, as a runner, like you need so many more calories. And it's hard because when you go out and you read things about like how much the average person should be eating, it's so much more different for someone who's running a lot of miles. So it was really helpful to have Brooke to help me with that. And then she also obviously helped me fueling during my runs. So one of the biggest things that she helped me with was how to not just completely bonk, because that was one of my biggest problems was I would get, halfway through a run or I would get almost through an entire run and I would just feel like so exhausted and so tired. And I actually was just talking to Brooke about this too, is that I did a half marathon and my sister was like poking fun at me. She was like, why are you wearing a vest? She was like, no one else is wearing a vest. But I had always, Brooke told me that's the best way to drink water for me.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't bring it, didn't drink enough water, completely bonked. So that kind of is what prompted me to run the marathon. Did exactly what Brooke told me to do. Finished the marathon at a faster pace. Didn't bonk at all. And I was like, oh, look at that.
Wait, so your average pace for the marathon was actually faster than what you ran that half?
It was about the same, and some of the splits were faster.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
like unheard of,
a lot of the
honestly.
splits were faster. Yeah,
That's like unheard of.
so
That's
I'll
amazing.
yeah, it just goes to show. I mean, definitely like fueling during your runs the right way is like insanely important. Um, and even kind of just going along with that too, beyond the nutrition part, I just kept waiting to get injured during my training or even like after the marathon. I kept waiting. Like I was like, all right, I did everything Brooke told me to do to eat and I followed Duane's strength protocol, but something's going to start to hurt. I just ran a marathon and like nothing, no tweaks, no nothing.
Nice.
So
Nice. I
being very
love
excited
that.
about that. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So this was just recent, like a little over a week ago, right?
hmm
You ran your first road marathon.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you didn't bonk.
I
You
didn't.
actually, yeah. Did you have a specific goal? Like what were your goals? And it doesn't need to be a time goal. Was it like more of a process goal? Like just to finish? Like
Yeah.
what were
So,
some of the goals for your race?
so my main goal for the race was not to hit the wall. Like that was like my one goal. I was like, I want to maintain a consistent pace because I was trying to be a little more realistic and say, this is the first time I'm doing this and I want to enjoy it. Like I want to enjoy the process, like see how it goes. I want to like have fun on the course. I was like, I don't want to just go out there and like hammer down and go too fast or something like that because I don't know what my pace is yet because I've never done it. So that was my one goal, was to just maintain a pace, which I did. So I was happy about that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I just love that. And I love hearing that for someone's first like marathon because yeah, we're big believers in setting realistic goals, number 1, and having you actually enjoy the first experience because I know my first experience I did not enjoy. That's why it took me 5 years to go back for my second marathon. And there's so many people who same thing, hit a wall, cramp up. It's just painful, or you get injured, and you just, it's not something that you really want to go back and do again. Um, so yeah, I guess, have you even started to think about, what would be next? Would you go back again for another marathon?
Yeah, so I actually just talked with Brooke Monday. So we had just talked about this, but I'm actually signed up for a race in New York through it's I found it because I one of the places that my husband and I love to rock climb is at the Mohonk Preserve. They call it
Oh
like the
yeah.
Gunks. And they do a
Yes.
50-mile race there every year. So I'm signed up for
Nice.
that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
that'll be the
And
next race.
awesome. And yeah, based upon your experience dealing with like the knee pain, the foot pain, the underfueling, do you have any recommendations for someone who is struggling with similar issues?
Yeah. So honestly, when I take a step back and I go through everything, like finding answers and sticking to a good strength training plan um, that's tailored more to you makes like a world of difference. Because really, ever since we worked on the strength that we did, not only do I feel like I have like a better understanding of what muscles need to be strengthened and the importance of what muscles need to be strengthened, but I just have been so pain free. Like no matter what kind of runs I've done or what miles I've increased or speed workouts I've done, like I don't have any pain and it's something I don't worry about. So I definitely would say finding the right strength training plan. Um, and even too, I mean, something that really helped me with my marathon, and I'm not just saying this is just kind of the truth, but um, a lot, like really a lot of the stuff that you guys talk about in your podcast can just be really helpful, even from just a mindset standpoint. So a lot of the information is helpful, like almost everything you talked about in the marathon tip podcast that you did, where you were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, tips for, race day. Were
Yep.
like I to a T wrote them all down. It was like I need to do all these things, and they definitely were helpful. And even just kind of some of the mindset stuff that you talk about a lot, I think is so important for everyone to hear. But just talking about like, some people they get this time goal in their head that's this number that someone came up with and was like, oh, you should do it in under this time. And regardless of whether or not that's realistic for you, people get it stuck in their head. Because I was definitely guilty of that, of saying, oh, well, like, my friends can do it in this time. And everyone says this is a good time. When you look up marathon times and half marathon times, this is what I should be doing. Or what's the point in trying to run if I'm not fast? So I think listening more to your podcast was really helpful in saying, like, well, no, it's not about like what other people are doing. It's like what's realistic for you, like what's a good goal for you and how can you achieve it versus just kind of like, oh, whatever everybody else is doing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Just making sure that you are keeping it tailored to where you're at in your journey, right? Because we're
Yeah.
all at different journeys, at different points of a running journey. And yeah, no, I'm so glad that has been helpful. And from what I heard from kind of your tips is to kind of really make sure someone's doing the proper amount of strength, the right type of strength, maybe strength training that's specific for runners and doing strength training in general, right? Like so many
Yeah.
runners who don't do strength training. So you found that super helpful. And then also getting in the right mindset and,
Hmm.
just becoming educated on race strategy. I've kind of heard from what you gave there, as well as setting realistic expectations, right? And having that right mindset and setting realistic goals for yourself. So those are gold tips, right? Those are like, yeah, those are gold. So yeah, you guys have heard it from me like many times before. So if you don't believe anything I say, like listen to Rachel here. She just completed her first marathon and she did it pain free and didn't hit a wall. So it is possible, guys. And I know, so many people are, scared of that and they worry about that. And yeah, Rachel, like I'm just like so proud of you, honestly, because again, it is usually like we definitely have runners your age in our program, but it's not that common. It is usually, when you get in your 40s, 50s, you get wiser as you get older, like myself. I can put myself in that category where you're like, okay, I need to do this the right way. Like, and you kind of focus on doing things the right way. But like, I just love how you have started doing this at such a young age. Like I'm just like excited to honestly see where your running journey takes you, and you're going to be doing like some incredible things. I don't know, I'm going to see you at like the top of Everest or something one day, and you're like taking a picture. um, yeah, I'm just so excited to like see where your running journey goes, and I really appreciate you sharing your story and your journey with us here today. um, and if anyone's listening to this right now and any of this resonated with you, my question is really, are you ready to take action and get the guidance of combined injury and nutritional support so you can unlock your greatest potential as a runner like Rachel did? And you can get stronger, run faster, and become a lifelong injury free runner with our 16-week one-on-one healthy runner coaching plus nutrition package. So you can get the support, structure, and accountability from myself as your running PT and coach, and Brooke as your running registered dietitian with personalized, easy to follow plans tailored to your unique needs and busy life. And this really includes all that our signature healthy runner coaching program offers, with customized strength training for running and detailed run plan, but also includes an initial 60-minute session with Brooke, two follow-up sessions of 30 to 45 minutes, filling out a detailed like nutrition intake form, food tracking for a week, sessions with Brooke that include specific guidance on fueling based on your food log and addresses your questions. And she also really provides you the tools. And I think this came out through what you shared, Rachel, is the tools of kind of a meal pattern. And it's not a meal plan where it's like, you must eat this, this many days a week, and, a quote unquote diet, right? She really provides you that like meal pattern and suggestions so you understand the strategies, and now you have the tools, you're empowered, and you know how to actually apply those tools, versus just like following a plan or a quote unquote diet that isn't going to stick for the long run. So we're all about like longevity here. And I'm just so excited to kind of offer this coaching plus nutrition package in 2024. And yeah, this has just been so great having you share your story and journey, Rachel. I know Brooke, speaking for her, she's just so proud of you. I'm super proud of you. And, if you're out there and you're struggling with these things, this stuff is possible to get over. So don't think like you can't be a runner, or, you're always going to have knee pain. Running's just not good for your body, or running's bad for your knees. Like, all of those are not true. Those are myths. So if you want to learn more about our program, you can get a little behind the scenes video and a tour of our coaching program. Just go to learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com/coaching. And thank you again, Rachel. I really, really appreciate you sharing your story and your tips and your wisdom. And I look forward to seeing your continued journey, and see you crush this upcoming race in Mohawk.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as always, runners, let's maintain a strong mind, a strong body, and let's just keep on running. Until next time.